Okay, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Bennington Select Board, Monday, September 9th, 2013. Bennington Fire Facility, time is 6 p.m. First item on the agenda, pledge allegiance. John, will you please lead us? Thank you, John. Okay, next item on the agenda, the minutes from August 26th.
I'll move they be accepted as printed.
Second.
Okay, any discussions on the minutes? Okay, all in favor? That's 6, abstain, 1. Next item are the warrants, and Tom, we're gonna start with you.
I have no questions that have not already been answered.
Okay, Greg?
Bottom of page 6, Stu. Last item, I'm drawing a blank on RBC.
RBCs are the rotating biological compactors at the wastewater treatment, 16 or 18 foot diameter.
Is that a planned repair, or was that?
Yes, it is a planned repair. We're going to be replacing the bearings of most of them over the next several years. It's one of the things that was identified in the long term.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That's all I got.
Okay, John?
I'm all set, thank you.
Justin?
I'm all set, Joe.
Jim?
Greg stole my thunder.
Sharon?
Just that third item on the first page,
The third item,
for 728698.
yes, that is the surrender of 457. 457 plan is like a 401k, but it's a municipal plan. Some years ago, we offered voluntary opportunities for people to take a 457. This is Julie Train, who's the former rec director.
Oh, okay.
Surrender, she's the last of those to surrender.
Okay, didn't recognize the last name. Okay, that's it.
Mine's not on the warrants, other than, I see 1, 2, 3 iPads here. We're asking you to go to the technology. I understand from Michelle that the warrants is the hardest thing to,
Yeah, it didn't come out very good.
to take and send. Did anybody have trouble reading the warrants? Those of you who did it online?
That's definitely the piece that comes up most difficult to read, just the format it's put in.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I
it's
guess
just
the
really-
workaround is that we'll need a hard copy of this each meeting.
Yeah, until we
No,
fix
Michelle
it's-
sent me another one.
It shows up lengthways, and when you
Gee.
try to turn it to actually
Okay.
see it, the way.
She sent it separate PDF.
Okay.
And it came through pretty good the second time,
Okay,
but
Yeah,
still
because the
better.
first time she sent them individually, they came out
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
And this time they didn't, so.
so we're
working
gonna
on it.
continue to do what you want, then we'll continue to send them IT.
Yeah, I think everything else seems to be working. If we can get it,
Yeah.
you know, if you can print out the warrants at home, it's easier. And one of the issues, I think, is that it's just, it doesn't go the right way.
If you pull it
when
up
you
on a
put
computer, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
It'll come up a lot better than it
Yeah.
does on an iPad.
Okay, but again, we all wanna use the iPads here, right? That's the way to go?
I think we should, it's worth a
Eventually.
shot.
No, this is absolutely,
Considering
Okay.
the amount of trees that are in my office at home, I think.
Understand.
Give it a shot.
Okay, the next item are citizens. Do you have any citizens out there? Michael, you want to come up to the mic, please, and identify yourself for who may in Bennington not know who you are?
Makes a lot of squeaking noise. Hi, I'm Mike Bethel. Could you do me a favor? Could you pass these out? Give the brown copy to Stu. I'd like to request on the Freedom of Information Act some emails from you folks from July, August to date.
You already submitted the request, haven't you, Mike?
Nope, that's it.
This is in addition to ones you've already submitted? Okay,
Is it one copy short? I thought I had enough for everybody.
Yeah, I think we're one short.
Well, look on a,
We can get it.
but we don't need it. I mean, as long as Stuart has it.
all right, I'd just like some copy of your emails through July, August, up to date. Through under the Freedom of Information Act, please. Thank you.
Let me clarify, okay? You want the ones from the town manager to the select board members and the assistant manager, who is Mr. Dan Monks now, is that correct?
And amongst yourselves.
So if perhaps over you just heard us talking about us going to the system on here. So if I see Tom Jacobs and I answer him on something like that, you want that information too?
Yes.
So any personal information?
Not
that doesn't
personal,
have-
business, town business information.
Well, that's what the select board email address is set up to do, right? Those are all logged as public information.
Yep, okay.
That's why we started using that system, so when somebody requests
But
that.
emails between each one, too, each one of yous that aren't probably on the system.
I always use that when they're
That's what I
doing
use.
it, yeah, exactly for that
That'd be
reason.
an issue. Stuart?
Well, I think we'll, could I
We'll do
comment
our
on
best.
that?
Yeah, okay.
Because if it's emails, that I might invite this guy to lunch, I'm not going to be sharing that with anyone under freedom of information.
It says involving town business.
Yeah,
If I ask you to go to lunch, or if I ask you to come over to the Veterans Home to
That's
talk
not
about
town
this
business.
thing, it's not town business.
Okay, then the town manager expect will be able to determine what is town business and what is not.
I can certainly pull together those that I have between and among us and the assistant manager. Should be able to do that.
Yep,
Okay.
okay.
July 1.
Thank you.
Is that all you got?
That's it.
Okay, any other citizens out there? All right, we'll move on to the next agenda. I see you guys in uniform. We're gonna talk about the rescue pumper fire truck purchase. Chief, are you coming up with the chiefs? We've got 4 chiefs out there.
It's a lot of brass.
I see no war paint, so this should be easy, right? Paul, you gonna take the lead on this? We'll take the lead, sir. Okay. Geez, you got a target with you? What are you bringing a target for?
As long as it's aimed that way, we'll.
So, tonight, Paul Doucette, Chief of Police and Public Safety Director, excuse me. Tonight, we're here to present to you some facts and some information about what we hope will be our next fire truck acquisition here. This is a rescue pumper truck. We have had several meetings with fire chiefs and I have not been involved in any of the meetings with the truck committee, but I have stayed in regular contact with especially Steve Crawford, and we've had many conversations about the new rescue pumper truck, advantages, disadvantages. I was present when the bids were opened, and again, we worked very closely at looking at these 2 trucks. When we sent out the bid proposals, or the bid requests, we did receive 2 back, one outfit out of Connecticut and one out of New York State, New England Fire and VHR Sales over in New York. So, excuse me, VRS Sales. So with that being said, we have looked at both of these trucks. We found that the SMEAL was not quite adequate, and we were looking at the towing. We did see here that the towing is several $1,000s more than the SMEAL. However, based over a period of time, we found that to be very reasonable. The truck will last longer. I don't want to get into all the technical details of this. I want to tell you all that we have worked closely, and I do support the fire department. This is the 3rd time we've been before the board in probably the last 7 years or so in an attempt to purchase a new fire truck. And this fire truck here, being a rescue pumper, is exactly what the town needs to benefit the community and keep the community safe at fires and motor vehicle crashes. So at this point,
What goes away when we buy this truck?
2 trucks.
2 trucks go away when we buy this truck,
Yes, we would.
and this gives us more capability than the 2 combined, as far as I recall, when we react to an incident someplace. Is that correct, Steve?
That's correct. We, our philosophy in the future was to get rid of the rescue truck that we have now in one pumper and combine the 2 as a, pretty much the primary response vehicle that would go first out. This truck would give us, it's a rather large truck, but it would give us all the basic equipment to start an incident, no matter what it was, if it was a motor vehicle accident or a building fire or a hazmat incident. It would start, it would have everything on it to start the incident.
What did we budget for the new truck this year? Do you recall, Stuart?
We actually didn't budget anything this year for the new truck because if the board approves the purchase and we are able to put together a borrowing scenario that you folks are comfortable with, the first payment will not be due until a year after the receipt of the truck.
So
we're
probably
looking
15 or
2 years.
16?
Probably
15 or
looking 2 years out, 2050.
Okay. Board all understand that?
How long does it take to get the vehicle online from
The build
Probably,
date is approximately 240 to 300 days.
almost a year?
So is this similar to the truck, this isn't the truck we looked at?
Correct, it's the same philosophy as the truck you looked
Okay.
at, but this is custom designed by the truck committee here in Bennington and set up for all the basic essentials that we had on both trucks now, you know, the two trucks combined into the one.
Okay,
The truck that we looked at was a demonstrator that didn't have all the bells and whistles, or I would say the apparatus that we needed, like the cascade system and the guns and that kind of thing.
okay. And the lower bid that you got, it didn't have all the equipment
The lower
that
bid
was necessary?
Lower bid didn't necessarily have all the equipment on it. We found some deficiencies in the spec. And then, you know, I can honestly say that, you know, with the trucks that we looked at, while I won't be standing here, but the chief in 15 years from now, this truck will still be in great shape and still working for us. And we expect this truck to be a 20-year truck. We were, you know, when I came to you folks, originally it was, you know, is this what we want to do? Do we want to buy a 20-year truck? And I believe everybody was in agreement that that's what we wanted to do, so.
What's going to happen to the old trucks?
The old trucks, we have a tentative bid on the pumper already from a neighboring department.
For how much?
What's that?
For how much?
It was around 70,
80,000.
80,000.
That's just for one.
That's just for one. And then the rescue truck, we really can't sell that until we take possession of this truck, so that, because we'd be losing, you know, both trucks, we'd lose a lot of space.
What's the estimated value of the remaining truck?
The estimated value of the truck, the rescue,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would estimate it at around the same 80,000 or so.
So there'd be, you know, in totality, there'd be a reduction of 160,000.
Well, yeah, you'd probably end up being able to reduce the purchase price by the first 80. The second 80 would go into the reserve because you're going to have to borrow to pay upfront for a number of things such as the chassis and those things as they are put together.
What do we have to lay down to place the order for 300 days out? Any cash we got to come up with?
I don't know the financials of it, that's all.
At this point, no.
So out of this budget, nothing needs to come out of either this budget or the reserve right now to get this truck
That's
on order?
correct.
It's just our word that we want to order this truck?
Yes, and I hope to have financing scenarios for you on a 15 and 20-year purchase from Municipal Leasing Corp., which is a Vermont corporation. Unfortunately, their emails were down today. They called first thing this morning, hoped to have everything up and running by the end of the day. Unfortunately, they did not.
Yeah, mine wasn't either.
So I'll have that probably tomorrow sometime, and I can send that out to the board so you can see what those financing scenarios are like.
Okay, according to our capital plan, don't we have at least one of the two trucks we're talking about now going to come in front of us this budget year? Do we have to look at one way or the other?
I believe that pumper 936 was on the capital plan for replacement.
Yes.
Yeah, so we were faced with seeing that this January anyway, folks, that we had to make a decision on one truck or whatever.
I've got a question with respect to maintenance of the vehicle, and in your last paragraph in the letter to us, you note that the place of sales would be in Clifton Park, New York. Now, in the event that the vehicle had to be maintained or repaired, would that mean us transporting the vehicle or
While the
them coming
vehicle's
to
under
us?
warranty, it would be all on there. They would come up, they would pick it up if it needed to go to their facility, as well as, you know, come here and work on it on site. You know, the thing is, the warranty is pretty much an easy given. You know, everything's covered at that point. The thing that we're
what
looking
length
at is
of
in the
time?
future when it runs out of warranty.
And what's the length of the warranty in
Basically, these trucks, both trucks would be covered for 5 years.
5 years?
You know, I mean, there's, you could get in, there's probably well over 1,000 different pieces that are, got a different warranty on them, but the basic essential of the truck is covered for 5 years.
Okay.
When we look at, I mean, it's obviously a dual-purpose truck. Just so I have more information, the rescue portion of it is to go out and help victims, is that right?
The rescue portion of it is for like vehicle crashes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there'll be tools located in the front bumper, hydraulic tools to cut cars open, as well as it'll be a pump with 750 gallons of water on it. So one case scenario is if we came to a car crash and there was a vehicle on fire as well as a crash,
Right.
we would be able to take care of the whole scenario and not be waiting for one apparatus or the other.
So we're not actually we wouldn't be losing any functionality or any situation where it'd be more appropriate to have the two smaller trucks.
That is correct.
Okay.
We've checked in the ISO, we've checked the standards for all the NFPA and everything. That's why this truck is a lot bigger than it would seem that the trucks that we have now are. But in order to keep everything that we need to keep the standards that we are for the taxpayers of the town, it kind of really has to be this big so that we can carry everything on.
Okay, Greg?
Trucks.
Steve, last time you were here, John and Tom were not on the board, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that didn't see that. Maybe you could just, because this is really a philosophically different way of responding to calls, so it might be good to just run through that for folks again. But, you know, the crew cab, the pumper and tools on board versus two trucks and making a choice and that type of thing.
Sure. Essentially, the fire department's laid out right now with 3 pumpers, a ladder truck, and a rescue truck. And what happened is each one of those, there's 4 companies that belong to the Bennington Fire Department, and each one of those 4 companies is respectively taking care of each one of their trucks. So with the 4 companies, we had 5 trucks. Years ago, they added the 5th truck for the rescue part of it. We, as we find it's harder to get volunteers and to get all the equipment to the scene as fast as possible, we're trying to change the philosophy a little bit where this would be the first truck out, and it would have essentially 2 trucks built into one so that we could start whatever the incident is. That's what we're looking forward to doing as far as, you know, instead of waiting for 2 trucks, we can only have to wait for the one and kind of make it that much more efficient. And also, you know, it's one less truck we'll have to maintain, one less truck to insure and register, but essentially though, it's with less volunteers and stuff, it's more feasible for us to get this truck here and get things started.
And this would be responding with personnel on board as opposed to a truck arriving and
Correct.
volunteers
We're
arriving in
trying-
their own vehicles.
We're trying to push more and more, you know, people to come to the firehouse and, you know, get the apparatus and get to the scene.
I've got a question. What are the capabilities in contrast to the 2 vehicles that we're losing? Are there more abilities with this new truck?
Well, this will be more functional, as far as, you're losing, the truck that we have now, the pumper that we have is 1,000 gallons of water, this one has 750. The pump that's there now is a 1,250 gallon a minute pump on the truck, this one's 1,500. So we pick up in the pump space, you know, as far as pump capacity, but we lose a little bit of water. But with the, you know, the water sources that we have in town, you know, with the hydrant system that we have, you know, we're more than adequate. The tools will be located right in the front bumper, and they'll have pre-connected reels. So you pull up, essentially, you'll be able to grab the tools and go, flip the switch on in the cab, and the tools they'll be live. So essentially, it's a lot faster setup for the vehicle extrication part of it, as well as, you know, the pump. Like I said, we got 750. This truck is capable of foam like the truck that we're getting rid of. So it'll be
It is or is not?
It is. This is set up the same way as that one is, with the foam.
When we had them on display, if we did nothing, we were still gonna have to put money in the current vehicles we had to upgrade. I think you said the hoses and other things that we had wasn't there some upgrades we would have had to done on the trucks we have now if we don't look at getting new ones?
Upgrades, and you know, we're getting to the point where this truck is, both these trucks are scheduled with stainless steel piping.
Right.
The trucks that we have now are scheduled 40 black iron pipe, so we're looking at a failure rate of the pump piping coming up in the future.
Okay.
probably in the
Wasn't
near
there an
future.
issue with some of the decals or some of the
Yeah.
markings on the outside, the back of the truck with the lights and
The
that kind
chevron,
of thing?
whatnot.
Well, the chevron's a new NFPA
Yeah.
standard on the back of the truck, correct? I mean, you know, NFPA changes, it seems like every 1 to 2 years, but the standards, you know, this truck will be fully standard, you know, up to the current compliance.
To codes, okay.
It looks like this truck is a total of about $600,000. The cost for a pumper and a rescue exceeds that.
Oh, yeah,
I'm just saying it so we can
yeah.
I would
definitely.
hear it. That's, I
Yeah.
mean,
You're probably looking, if you replace both those trucks now with trucks, like trucks that they are, you're probably looking at close to $1 million or $1 million
Right.
plus.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's important to know that.
It just seems like there's nothing about a no-brainer, but as far as response and safety, just makes sense, because otherwise you could be at a fire with no pump.
We've had incidents in the past where
That
with
happened in
loss of
reality.
life.
Yeah.
You know, that happened in reality, and it does make you wonder, you know, it makes you look at things in a whole different aspect of, you know, what could we do or what could we do, and that's what we're trying to do is curve the future.
And in the comparison to the 2 trucks, I'm seeing there's a $35,000 difference in the overall cost of the second truck. And basically, you're talking about all stainless steel versus a combination of stainless and galvanized, which I'm thinking galvanized probably would serve us a long time, but it's going to hit the resale value. When we have this discussion again in 15 years, an all stainless truck is probably going to be a lot more attractive on a resale market.
Correct, and then the
Titanium.
galvanneal, I don't know how that would hold up in 15 years. you know,
Right,
that's-
yeah, that's going to be end of life probably as
From other,
opposed to.
yeah, from other departments, I've seen that, you know, it may or may not be at the 15-year mark is where you're gonna see some failures.
And you're talking about 74 cubic feet of additional storage space in one, which
In the
is
truck.
about 4 by 4 by 4, a little more than that, which is probably a significant tool.
It is when you're combining the
Yeah.
two trucks, we're trying to get every piece of
Right,
space. we
everything
can
on
find.
there. Okay.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I'd accept a motion to accept the fact that we go ahead and make the arrangements to order the truck as Chief Crawford has suggested with his,
I'll make the motion to go with the truck from VRS Sales.
I'll second that.
okay, any further discussion? Not all in favor? That's unanimous. Don't run off, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Steve, hang on. You're on camera. Get the camera on, Steve, please. Last week when, or 2 weeks ago, you weren't here when we congratulated you to be the fire chief of the year of the state of Vermont. And I just want to tell you, now that you're here on camera, let people see you. We're very proud, town of Bennington, very proud of your accomplishments. And anybody that's seen you appear in front of our board, and then many of us have talked to you personally, understand you totally deserve the honor you received. So you brought great credit upon yourself and the town of Bennington, and we thank you for all your hard work, Steve.
I thank you
Great
folks for
job.
the support. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Steve.
Thanks.
Okay, next item on the agenda, Stuart, homestead declaration, late filing, and I hope everybody's paying attention to this out there in the
Yeah,
TV land.
This is a response to new legislation that came into place this year. In the past, if you filed your HS 122 late, there was a $15 penalty that the town could or could not collect, allegedly to pay the cost of making a new tax bill. It was such a small amount, we did not bother fighting with our taxpayers about whether or not that was an appropriate fee. The legislature this year passed a law, in our case, where our homestead tax rate is less than our non-homestead tax rate, established a 3% penalty on the education tax portion of your bill, plus the $15, to defray the cost of printing new bills for people who file late. And I think, perhaps properly so, there is some punitive measure here on the part of the legislature to try to get people to comply with the law. The law now requires the filing of an HS 122 by every homeowner, every property owner actually, annually. And it used to be you filed once and that was good until you changed. Now it's annual. So now we have found ourselves in a situation, and we don't know how many are out there. We send out 5,000 tax bills. A few have approached us, some with really kind of odd circumstance where people were trying to think ahead and ended up being penalized because they thought ahead. Those are working their way, and these were parcels where our purchase took place after April 15th, and the attorneys for the purchasers filed the HS 122 on behalf of the new owners so that they would be sure to get the benefit, and they were penalized because they filed late. Well, they didn't own the property, so that's a separate appeal that those attorneys are pursuing with the Vermont Property Tax Division. We don't know how that's going to come out. But I come to you tonight because the law provides that this board may, based on hardship, waive the penalty for those property owners, and hardship is clearly defined in the law, which I have provided to you, and it's basically a full-time active military duty outside the state, a serious illness or disability that prevented the filing, or a serious illness, disability, or death of an immediate family member that may have prevented the filing. Unfortunately, there are many people in town who simply don't file. They are either not aware of it, The form is now no longer included in the tax information the state provides to you. You have to go online or to a library or someplace to get it. So those of us who might not have computer access from our homes have to find a way to get it. And we understand there are probably many in our community that are going to be hit with this penalty that don't have access to a computer at home, therefore didn't know that there was a change in the law in spite of everything we did. I mean, we started announcing this, annual meetings, select board meetings, we posted notices in the paper, but, you know, there are people who are not as savvy from a communication perspective and media perspective as others, and so we suspect that there'll be a number of people out there that will be affected by this penalty. We talked to Property Valuation and Review, and their response to us was basically, the board can waive it. The law doesn't really say that, but it does say that the property may include a penalty, that a late filing may include a penalty. So Joan and I have talked about it, and that's Joan Pacino, our collections director and our treasurer. We're not opposed necessarily to some penalty. We don't know that it should be 3% of the fee, and we think there are going to be hardship cases that go beyond the hardship that you see outlined in the law. People who just simply don't have access to the necessary information. So I'm here to find out from you, how would you like us?
Well, I got a couple concerns. One, it's established by the legislature, establish a 3% education tax penalty. So does that mean if we have somebody here that falls under this new law and they don't pay, and we say we're going to waive their ability, does the town and the other taxpayers have to make up the difference in the state education tax?
This money, this penalty money comes to the town.
Okay.
So it's nothing that we have to pay back to the state.
Okay. The other question I have is, if you have filed for an extension on your tax and it is approved, do you have until the date it's approved in order to pay? Or does it go April 15th or 16th, whatever falls on?
I don't have an answer to that question.
I think what I heard, and I think we need to verify, that extensions do not count in this. It is the filing deadline established by law, but we need to get, we may need to get that clear. I did not get that from an official, Stuart.
Okay.
But I heard that's what the intent was. Any questions from the board? Greg?
I have a question. So in a case where someone has not filed, they're going to get a larger bill than they would normally get had they filed.
And it shows right up on the bill what your penalty is.
Okay, and so is it it's a higher tax bill, or it's their tax bill with a penalty for not filing?
Well, it amounts to a higher tax bill because
Right.
your
Bottom
total bill
line
is now increased by 3%.
But it is separate
But there is a
line
line
item.
item.
Yes, it
that
is a
says-
separate line item.
Would it be practical, because of exactly what you're saying and the way things come about to people's attention, to have a moratorium on the penalty, or make it a $15 for the first year or something like that to get people's attention, so you can say, okay, look, this is what you should have done, this is how it plays out, file it next year, there won't be a waiver next year, and then, come up with a penalty at that point, because I have a hard time, and we've had this discussion with tax bills too, where someone makes an honest mistake, they intend to pay the right tax, they're saving their money, whatever, they miss a date or something and they get slammed. They're our customers, our taxpayers, and, we're not helping their situation by penalizing them when their intentions are good. I mean, if you just blow it off, it's one thing, but is that practical, or is that just?
It is practical.
To-
I mean, because when we print the bills, obviously, we have a copy of the bill. Those people who are going to find themselves penalized, we will know who they are when they come to pay. If it's this board's desire to make the penalty a $15 penalty and waive the rest, but we adhere to the $15 penalty because you did file late, then we can do that. And I don't think property valuation would disagree with that move. I'm not sure that that's what the legislature intended, but the word "may" is included in that sentence structure. It's not a shall. So I think it does give the board the opportunity this year, and perhaps in future years, depending on how the board sees it, to essentially waive the education tax penalty and charge a $15 fee just to wake people up. I
Yeah.
mean, there are people who simply
They're just
aren't
not
paying
engaged.
attention.
Yeah, they're just not engaged. They don't
That's
have
right.
internet, they don't read the
Aren't
paper
there some
that
people
carefully.
that just don't file tax returns because they don't make enough money anyway?
There may be those people as well, Sharon.
So how do we notify them?
We have attempted to do that, Joe. We do it through the media. We do it through these board meetings. Some people just are not connected in any
Frankly, though,
format.
sometimes it's a good idea not to be connected because the legislature and the tax department has changed the rules 3 times in the last 5 years on the same subject. So sometimes it's better to just wait and see what happens.
So,
Frankly,
Is that your legal opinions of the community?
I've given it in so many words, but maybe in different contexts. I just think that this is the first year, and I tend to agree with what Greg is saying, that if at all, a small reminder would be in order rather than try to penalize the population for confusion that I don't think the population created.
I agree.
So the normal process of filing this form is done during
Tax time.
Tax time.
somebody's income tax time?
That's right. April
Which is-
15th is the deadline.
You file
Seems
it
a little disconnected from the property tax.
It is entirely disconnected from the property tax.
It's a confusing issue. It truly is.
And you've already mentioned one hole they found in it, you know, with the
Right.
purchasing. So there's liable to be more holes.
Yeah, I would tend to
Well,
think
so
so.
maybe secondarily, we should ask the legislature to relook at this.
Well,
Maybe
that
tie
In
it
their
to
we
the
infinite
intend to
wisdom,
do
or is that
anyway.
the
Yeah.
education?
The risk is, Sharon, of course, is that they change it again.
Which they could do.
Leave us all more
Just make it
confused.
go away, that's all.
Well, I think there's an intent here on the part of the legislature to make people pay attention. I'm not sure that a 3% penalty in some towns where the non-homestead rate is lower than the homestead rate, the
Right.
penalty's 8% on the
Yikes.
education tax. So, I mean, it can be really punitive.
Yeah.
But I like what Greg and Tom are talking about as far as a small penalty, something to let people know they have to think about this, and that we have to do a better job in March and April of getting those forms out to people or making them available to
Right.
people so they remember to file. And those who don't file their income tax are going to have to file the form.
The form,
If
yeah,
they own
file it
property.
regardless whether you
with,
file
with
your
re-
taxes.
with respect to appealing the late filing penalty in the hardship cases, whose discretion would that be at? And would each and every one of these cases come before the select board or the listers?
Well, if you read that, it means that everyone who wishes to appeal, those that are hardship cases can be noticed by the treasurer and sent to this board for you to act. Others may appeal to the listers as they would their assessment.
Board of Civil Authority, I mean,
And then
historically.
ultimately, the Board of Civil Authority. I mean, it creates this
nightmare.
incredible logjam of appeals that shouldn't exist. It really shouldn't. It's,
Well, I think as I understood, the change was, one of the changes was that it became effective when you filed your original homestead declaration, and that was in forever. Then they were finding a lot of folks were moving on and not opting out of the homestead. And so the tax department was losing potential revenue for the non-homestead folks. And so they put the burden back upon us to try to remind them each year that we're still living in the house that we lived in the year before.
And I think that was part of it, but the other part of it, because we got involved in this thing, is that people didn't know they had to file it, the form didn't, and then everybody was getting prebates and rebates, and why wasn't I getting it?
Yep.
And then, you know, they established a deadline, that's when we started making sure our tax bills got out earlier.
recall, yes, we got them out earlier, because if you recognize that you have not filed, you can file by September 1, theoretically, to gain the rebate or prebate,
Prebate.
but now you're going to be penalized as well because you filed late.
The whole thing's been changed. Remember, we used to get a check back, or those got it, we get a check back. Now I don't get a check back, it goes
Goes
into
to the
credit
town.
kind of thing, and it's a whole mess of worms. What I'm sensing, I see some nods of heads here that what Greg and Tom suggested is probably the right go for the first year. I would just suggest whatever we do, we gotta be consistent, especially when it comes to who we decide fits the criteria for us to make an exception in future years. Stuart?
Yeah, I tend to agree, Joe. I think if you establish $15 as the penalty, we would apply that right across the board, except those that are fairly unique and where the property valuation folks may in fact make a determination that they are not or should not have been penalized because they were simply attempting to follow the law.
Okay, is the board clear with all that? I don't think we need a motion on that. I think we've given guidance to you, Stuart. Is
That's
that-
fine
Is
with
that
me.
enough? Is it clear with the board?
I'm okay with
Put it
that.
in play.
And I hope the
I think it might be-
newspapers out there,
I think we might make a motion.
if
just
you have
because-
ability to,
I'd accept
red,
the motion.
red ink on your headlines, this is one you want to put. You want a motion on it? Well, go ahead and
Yeah,
accept the
just
motion.
because
Go
it
ahead.
sort of
All
says
right, go
that
ahead.
I'd make a motion that a $15 penalty be prescribed for the late filers.
For the first year or forever?
I'm just first year because we might be revisiting this another year.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor? And that's 6. All against? Abstain?
Yep.
Present?
It includes me.
You're going to be the president.
No, it
President.
includes me. I was late.
Well, at least you admit it.
Good, John. Okay, we put that one to bed. Tropical Storm Irene line of credit report renewal.
Yeah, this is fairly straightforward. We have received, well, what are we looking at, 3.5 million? We've received just about 1.5 million in reimbursement from FEMA. That has been paid back. We've reduced the note from the 5 million original to 3.55 million. We have 2 project worksheets in play. One is under appeal, and we think that we're on pretty solid ground there. The major one, we have actually not received a formal decision, so we're still waiting the formal decision from FEMA before we can even undertake an appeal, which we believe we will have to do unless God smiles on us. But I think that this is straightforward. We paid just approximately $56,000 in interest this year on the overall note. That will, of course, be reduced in the ensuing years. We have 10 years from the point of borrowing to pay this off without going to a bond. At the end of that 10-year period, whatever is unpaid, we will have to bond or add to our bonded amount. We're fairly confident that we'll pay this down dramatically over the next 12 months. And we'll be back to you this time next year for any outstanding amount, if in fact we do need to roll it over.
But in case of the appeals, and Dan Monks is out here, correct me if I'm wrong, I've talked to the governor. The state is working with us on our appeals. So far, the state has been successful in, I think, 7 or 8 of the appeals. They haven't lost an appeal yet, I don't think. And we're still hoping that ours are going to be granted, and we're going to see some reimbursement.
And I should note that our congressional delegation is also working very closely with us to make sure that FEMA reacts in as timely a manner as possible and in as positive a manner as possible. And so we feel very fortunate to have both the state and our congressional delegation working with us. We still feel that we will be successful, and we'll keep you posted on where it goes.
So what action do you need on this, Stuart?
We need a motion to extend the line of credit. I have at least one document, there are probably more that need your signatures that I will circulate. There are at least,
Waive the reading of the
I
resolution.
think, 2 or 3 that need your signatures, and then a couple of the treasurer's signatures. So if you so move, and
We need to waive the reading first,
you can do that, yes, please.
and, okay, can I have a motion to
Make a
waive?
motion to waive the reading of the line of credit.
Okay, I have a motion to waive the reading.
second that.
And second, any discussion, all in favor? And it's unanimous. Okay, now I'll take a motion to extend the line of credit.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on extending the line of credit?
Not specifically, Joe, but I want to tell you something that relates to this. It's been brought up to me several times at my cart by various individuals here in town, and that's a level of frustration with respect to our congressional delegation with, and I can't speak to relative action or inaction, but it was brought to my attention that Chuck Schumer, the senator, senior senator from New York State, and what was it, the big storm last year? Sandy. Was able to garner, I don't know how many billions of dollars with relative quickness. And we've got Senator Leahy, who is the elder statesman of the Senate, the longest-serving senator, and he, by contrast, has been rather ineffectual.
Not true.
Not true at all.
Okay.
In fact, right after Irene, there was an additional several $1 billion appropriated at the federal level right after Irene occurred, and Leahy worked very closely, I believe, with Schumer, whatever his name is, in New York State. Part of those billions of dollars were also earmarked for Irene. So I think we're tied more closely perhaps to the New York State news than we are to the Vermont news, but I can assure you that our legislative delegation has been hand in hand with those folks.
And not on just this issue, but there's other issues that we're working with here, and I will tell you, our congressional delegation's in with it. They know us by a first-name basis, our town's going, and I would just answer, people who come to you, Jim, is it's politics. There's a few more electoral votes in New York State than there is in Vermont State. And if you don't think that matters, it does. I mean, as you know, some of you know, I just came back from Nashville, and they had a major disaster down there. The hotel I stayed in was closed for 6 months, had $180 million damage to the hotel, and 80% of it was paid for FEMA right away, so they get back into it. But it's a big metropolitan area, it's a big economic area, it's a big political area. They got it right away. So, but I will tell you, I've talked to Senator Sanders recently on the phone. I've talked to, I haven't talked personally to Senator Leahy on this issue. I have talked to his people, and Peter Welch and I communicate on a routine basis on the things, and they're doing the best they can to fight for us, and I'm very happy to say that. So we're back to the motion in a second.
Yeah, just before we
Yeah.
vote, I just want to give my usual disclaimer that I am employed by People's United Bank, but I
Right.
do not work for government banking and am not involved in this
Okay,
line of
will
credit.
you be voting?
I will be voting.
Okay. So any other discussion? If not, all in favor, extending line of credit, and that is unanimous. Thank you.
I'll circulate, there are 3 documents to sign.
Okay.
You have to fish them out, I didn't think to mark them.
Who's going to talk about the municipal planning grant? Danny?
Mr. Monks.
Our formal assistant town manager? Is official now?
I believe so.
It is official. It was effective September 1.
If it
Thank
wasn't,
you,
it is
everyone.
now.
So what are you serving as tonight?
Planning director
All right,
tonight.
good. We just
So,
want to make sure you
my
remember
hat.
that. All right.
I'm here this evening to request your approval for a grant application. Usually, most years, the Vermont Department of Housing and Community Development offers municipal planning grant funds, and it's offered to the planning commissions around the state to implement planning priorities or to do actual planning studies, et cetera. This year, the Planning Commission is requesting that the board authorize a grant application up to $8,000, which requires no match. Just wanted to mention that. To develop a plan to improve pedestrian and bicyclist safety along Benmont Avenue. In the materials that I gave you, you'll see that this has long been identified in our town plan as a priority, and most of this money will go for hiring folks to determine right-of-way and then develop a specific plan that can be implemented over time. We hope that a majority of it can be implemented by our folks in the highway department because we are really efficient at getting these things done. It costs a lot less for us to do it than to try to get federal funds and then go through all the requirements. Ends up costing as much or more with a lot more headache when we go for federal funds. But in any event, our hope is that with the project, we'll come out with a plan that we can implement over time through our annual budget process and develop a significantly better environment along Benmont Avenue. I think everyone sees the folks walking up and down there, and we can do a lot better there
Okay.
over time.
So the key is there's no local match,
There is no local match.
and this is just for the plan for us to get to, so at some point in time, we can take action on that plan.
Yes, we
Decide
will.
how we want to put it out for bid or do it internally.
Yes, we'd hope to have very detailed plans with cost analysis along with it, so we can make decisions about our priorities as we do
Okay.
the
Is there any grants available for implementation money?
Yes, there is. That's what I was alluding to before. There are at least 2 or 3 grant opportunities for implementation. What we found for these types of projects that we can do ourselves, most likely, most of this we can do ourselves, that the cost is at or above what would cost for us to do it ourselves, and we have all the additional requirements that go along with it. That's not to say that we might not apply for federal funds or state funds. I'm just saying that we will have an opportunity to do these things ourselves, as well as looking for grant funds.
So Housing and Community Development will provide plan money, but they don't have grants available for implementation?
Well, typically, the Vermont Agency of Transportation has the implementation money for this project. So we may, in the future, use this plan to apply for what they call bike ped grants, enhancement grants, transportation alternatives grants. There's several grants that come through the Federal Department of Transportation that are administered through the Vermont Agency of Transportation that we may be eligible for in the future, but they all require a plan
In place.
You can't get the grant without a
right.
plan.
They don't want to give money for something that may be possible. They want to know it's possible, so they want a plan.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, Dan, has this stretch been reviewed in the past, or is there any plan existing on it, or is it just the general?
There is no specific plan, except for an idea that it would make sense to improve it for bicycle and pedestrian safety. I do know that the Regional Planning Commission has begun to collect data, just because they realized it was important, even before the Planning Commission decided that this was something they'd like to apply for funds. So there is some baseline data that we can start with, and we just continue. This would accelerate the process of developing that plan.
Well, it's definitely a high-traffic area. It's certainly an area of commerce, and it doesn't look very good, and it is dangerous. I can tell you firsthand that it's not a safe place to
And it
walk.
might help the sale of that piece of property. It's been sitting there forever.
I would agree, absolutely.
It's not going to hurt.
That we could get developed. We have a good plan. It's a good, zoned a good way. And we enhance it that way, I think it might be more attractive to some developer. Okay,
Yeah, you've
everybody
got,
agree?
Yeah, and just another point to that, the Vermont Mill there, which in the last 20 years has filled up, and there's, last I knew, 59 commercial tenants in that property, and, the development ends there, and to the north there's nothing.
Right.
So there's a pretty vibrant community. There's a lot of traffic that comes in and out of there with the college there. And
A lot of
everything.
walkers, too.
Including a bike
Yeah.
shop that
Yes.
it's dangerous to get in and out of.
You got a bike shop and a college
Sure.
residing there. So.
Okay, so we're looking for approval to go for this municipal planning grant?
Just a motion to approve applying for this grant, and I have a resolution that I'd ask you to sign once you make that motion. and pass
I'd
it.
move the resolution for the municipal planning grant application.
Okay.
I'll second that.
And Sharon, second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Thank you very much.
And that is unanimous. Before you leave, Mr. Monks.
Yes, sir.
Before I came here to this evening, I was talking to Representative Tim Corcoran, who is on the House Transportation
Yes.
Committee, who is working on enhancement grants as we speak.
Yes,
The last one I remember we received was Pleasant Street.
yes.
Do we have a formal for Franklin Lane and Washington Avenue? Is there a formal enhancement grant request up there now for that? Or if not that, do we have another one up there that I'm not aware of, or forgot about?
We were approved for the Franklin Lane project as far as developing a plan for that. And
Okay.
that has been approved, and we're actually beginning work on that.
Okay,
As far as enhancement grants, I know that we did put in a bike ped grant for the Ninja Trail. You recall that.
Okay, yeah, I remember
folks
that.
approved that. I don't know if there's any.
is that a
other-
transportation enhancement?
That's a bike ped. They changed the term enhancement to transportation alternatives. Is that correct, Mike? And did that go in as a bike ped or transportation alternative? Bike ped grant.
Okay, so that might not qualify then, what what Representative Corcoran's doing.
Yeah, I don't believe, Joe, that we have an enhancement application before them this year.
Okay,
I did ask them about an enhancement project for Franklin Lane, and they asked us to do the scoping study first,
okay.
so.
Let's just double check that before Tim has to go back there and work on these. If we have one in, he needs a
We
new.
don't.
Okay, we don't?
I'm
All
pretty
right.
certain we don't.
We haven't
All right.
submitted any.
Okay,
And they
good.
did change that name to transportation alternatives, correct? So we all know them as enhancement grants, but now they're transportation alternatives.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is the grand list, 2013 grand list errors and omissions.
Yes, this just requires a motion to basically accept the lister's recommendation. I think we're talking about one property here that was not carried appropriately on the grand list, and so we need to, we put it on the grand list when it's actually a contiguous parcel, so we need to remove it, and that does require a motion and action by this board.
Okay? Everybody understand that?
Not really.
Explain it again.
There was a parcel of land that we carried as a separate parcel in the grand list for this year, and ultimately determined that it was a contiguous parcel that is not formally subdivided.
Okay.
So the value applied for a single lot is less. This parcel had to be removed from the grand list. So when you look at your documents, you will see that the grand list is being reduced by $59,000, the assessed value of that parcel of land.
Had it previously been added to the other parcel?
Yes.
That
Yes,
59,000
it's part
has
of the
already been
other
added?
parcel. We picked it up this year as a separate subdivision. It is not that at this time. When it ultimately becomes a subdivision, then we'll pick it up. So we picked it up too quickly.
But the other parcel will be
Oh, yes.
assessed at the increased 59,900?
No, the value of a contiguous parcel is something less. That's already on the grand list. What we did is essentially pick this up separately when we shouldn't have. So the other parcel's already on the grand list. It's not at 59,000. It's a combined amount. And this will simply reduce, it'll make this particular tax bill zero.
So I'd make a motion to deactivate property 48-51-11-00 on the grand list.
So in English, does everybody understand what that means?
Yes.
We're going to agree,
Got it.
okay? Do we have a second?
Oh, I'll second that, sorry.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, just quick clarification. So this parcel is .72 acres. The other parcel that it's actually included on had increased by .72 acres?
It was already carried
It was already in there? So
in
we're-
there.
Okay.
And so we picked this up, and essentially it's a double, I believe it's double bill.
Yeah,
Okay, so yeah, okay. It's already included.
okay? Everybody understand now? All in favor? And that's unanimous, thank you.
And I'll circulate that for your signatures as well.
Okay, Stuart, manager's report.
Remember this next time.
Yes, I only have one action item tonight. Once again, essentially a nonprofit organization. This is the Southern Vermont Medical Center Dialysis Unit, which is a part of SVMC. Annually, the folks in the dialysis unit put on a picnic for those who they serve during the year. This year, they wish to use the Willow Park Pavilion, and in making application, found that there was a $60 fee for that rental. They are asking the board, as is appropriate, to waive this fee in this particular case because they are basically doing this out of their own pockets and participation.
Okay. Any problem with that?
No, it seems to be normal.
Is that
No,
normal request?
I'll move we waive the $60 fee.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? And that's unanimous. That is, Stuart?
I believe so. Just a note for you folks, the original list of 26 properties that were being considered for tax sale has been reduced to 13. We suspect that it will be reduced further before we get to the tax sale date, as there are a number of companies that have contacted us that hold mortgages that are contemplating payment of those taxes, and I'll keep you posted as we move
And that's a
forward.
good news story.
Pardon me?
That's a good news story.
That is a good news story.
So everybody should understand, one, people are paying their taxes, or somebody's paying taxes on a piece of
Generally,
property.
it's the mortgage holders that are coming through with the payments. And the other note is, for those of you who use the tennis courts in Bennington at the rec center, you will note that they have been completely resurfaced. That was thanks principally to the South Shire Recreation Fund and a contribution from the Mount Anthony Union High School. The high school uses the courts for their tennis matches and for their practices. The total cost to redo the entire surfaces of those courts was $31,000. We budgeted $3,000 or $4,000 because we anticipated a higher amount. The cost actually came in slightly less. Our payment is $3,000, and for that, Mount Anthony matches our $3,000, and the Southshire Community Fund contributed $23,000
Great.
towards the improvement of our tennis courts.
Super.
Great.
Okay, anything else, Stuart?
That's it.
John, other business?
Nope. No.
Justin, Jim?
I think it's worth noting that a week ago Tuesday, our town manager celebrated his 21st year in service to the town, and I think he deserves some credit for that.
Great.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Stuart. Okay, Tom?
I've heard there's been a number of break-ins in certain properties around town. Just want to advise the community to be resolute and attentive and secure your property. And if you see that there's some unusual activity, notify the police, because they're always available to assist. But I think we have to watch out for ourselves and use the police department for its intended purpose.
Greg?
Yeah, just to take that another step, that we've had some incidents in our neighborhood, and I have to say, to the department's credit, they're very quick at responding, and they're very, very open to information and anything, but they're looking for firsthand information. If you know something, you have to tell them. Don't just complain to your neighbors and throw up your hands. You have to kick in a little bit, and,
Okay.
and the problems in time can get solved. So that's all I have.
Sharon?
I have nothing.
I was gone last weekend. I'm looking at John Shanahan. I understand we had some rain during Garlic Fest. Just nod your head, yes or no. It was successful? Extremely successful. Remind people of the car show this week.
Car show's Friday, Saturday night, cruising Saturday night downtown.
Big event for the town. A lot of folks coming in. Let's make sure we're courteous to our side folks that want to visit us some annually. It's going to be a great show. As you recall, we moved it a few years ago back into Bennington. So it's our show. We own it. So let's participate and support the Chamber and the Rotaries and all the nonprofits up there. It's going to be a good thing, and hopefully good weather. Another thing is that for those of you who subscribe to Bennington Banner, I ask you to look for an article that's going to appear. It's an op-ed written by, well, the titles, the byline will go to Mike Harrington, but it was put together by Mike and Dan. Bennington Economic Development Strategy, the Select Board and local school system collaborate for improved service to residents. You recall a couple years ago when we had the Rural Economic Development Group down here, and then last year with Dr. Mullins, it became clear to everybody that we needed a closer relationship between the Select Board and the school boards. We, the Select Board, and members on it have met twice with the school officials. We have another meeting up on the 25th of September. This is something we're not going to let go away. At our meeting, when we meet on the 25th, every member will be given a sheet to where we're going to write and publish after each meeting where we are on the goals that we have set for collectively for ourselves. And I think one of the biggest things I see is going to happen is we're all going to be better informed of how we form our budgets and look at the other person's thoughts and priorities as we go into this, and I think it's going to be better for the whole community. So I ask you to read that if you get the banner. Did it go to the Herald, Mike? Not yet. Not yet. Is it going to go to the Herald? Okay, Pat, we'll make sure you get it too, Patrick. But just to show you, we've paid attention to what we've paid these consultants for. They were right, and it has made a difference. We're going to continue on with it. So I'm very happy to see that. Good work, Mike and Dan, on this article. It's a very good article. And that's all I have. I don't see anything on the agenda for a need for executive session, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank everybody for coming tonight.